Good evening and welcome to the Finance Subcommittee of the Brockton School Committee. Today is Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, and the time is 7:07 p.m. Before we start, I want to actually establish a quorum, and then I will hand the mic over to the mayor. To establish our quorum, Mrs. Sullivan. Here. Mr. Homer.
Here.
Mrs. Ehlers.
Here.
Mrs. Mendez.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor.
Yes, here.
And I'm present, Joyce Asack. Thank you. So we have established a quorum, and I'm going to hand over the microphone to the mayor before we get to the agenda items.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman. I'd like to ask that we take a moment of silence for two individuals. The first one would be Joan Kerr. Superintendent and I went to Joan Kerr's wake tonight. She was an icon here. She was Mike's administrative assistant. She was in the gymnasium, in the phys ed, for Don Vanderstreet, for Billy Policino, for Mike Thomas. She was just a great person. So I'd like us to remember her and her family, and also an esteemed member, a former esteemed member, Mo Hancock, in Ward 1, school committee member, and his wife Debbie, unfortunately lost his son Jared. And it's a tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers go to the entire Hancock family and Jared's children and surviving wife as well. If we could take a moment of silence at this time. Thoughts and prayers, may they rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to go to our agenda. Item number 1 would be FY 2023 budget update, and I believe we have Chris Correa presenting.
Yep. Chris, you can use the podium.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There's a little button on it.
I got it. Hear me? Okay.
Perfect.
So we're still working with the preliminary numbers. I'll be meeting with the mayor and the CFO, Troy Clarkson, Thursday, and then we'll be bringing in Aldo as well to go over some numbers. So right now, the numbers remain the way they are. So we're still looking at attrition, class size. So I really don't have much of an update, but I can inform you that the ESSER 3 budget was approved by the state and the federal government. So we got a green light on that, so which is great news.
It's great news.
Yep.
Thank you. We just had a meeting prior to this, and the superintendent had, mentioned the great news. So that's wonderful that they approved that.
It's huge. Yeah.
Thank you. Any of the members have any questions or comments? Mrs. Sullivan.
I just had a question for the superintendent. On the class size, we were able to kind of get that down this year, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Because of the
So
money
there's
that we-
pockets of really small class sizes that we'll have to look at. We'll probably look at some attrition through to balance our budget. We're not going to have any layoffs, but there are some real small classes that are, again, you like to have those. We'd love to have small class sizes all the time, but class sizes of 16, 17, 18, it's just not feasible to sustain that over a long period of time. So we'll look at where those are really small and make some adjustments, because we also have, there's some bilingual classes that are high, 30. So we have to balance the numbers out a lot better. In some schools, there could be a fourth grade class that has 18 and then a fifth grade class that has 27. So we really have to do a better job of really evening out the numbers, for our teachers, because of the caseload should be as close to even as possible when it comes to those classes sizes.
Okay, yeah, because when we didn't have the money, the class sizes got a little large.
Oh, ridiculously
And then
large.
when we
Yep.
got the Student Opportunity Act money, we were able to lower
Right.
that a lot.
And we
So-
we want to keep them at obviously manageable numbers.
Right.
So we can sustain it,
Right.
which obviously is, mid-20s, probably a little lower in the lower grades, but, we have to get it stabilized. So again, it's consistent across the district in all grade levels. So it's, again, you want to make sure things are even for our teachers, so everybody has pretty much the same kind of caseload.
Right, so where it's a little high, would that be because we don't have enough teachers in those
Yes.
areas?
Yeah,
Okay.
there'd be certain areas we couldn't find staff. working with the new program with Kelly Jones, the bilingual department, should help level off the high numbers in some of our bilingual classes, because we're going to be spreading those out to all schools. So there's not really only one strand at one school where the numbers really start to shoot up, and sometimes you get close to 30 students. So that new launch program will help even out those numbers. And then in the other schools, we're just going to have to look at, class by class to make sure it's even, as close as we possibly can.
Right, okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And I'd also just like to let the committee know, next week we'll have more detailed numbers that we'll be able to go over and discuss, so.
Thank you. Any other members with any questions or comments? Mr. Rodriguez.
Chris, knowing that our enrollment numbers are down, is there an adjustment? Let's say if we're down 7, let's say we go to a spike 1,000, we get those numbers up. Can they adjust those numbers midway through the
So
enrollment
the
process?
so the aid, the Chapter 70 aid?
Chapter 70.
Normally, no. That aid, so once the Senate and the House come back, they'll, in the coming weeks, we'll get our increases there, but usually in mid-year, in my experience, we've never had increases. It'll end up being for the next fiscal, it'll be reflected on the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
And to follow up on that, I talked to Mike Brady. They did not do a pothole fund this year. The governor didn't do a pothole fund for enrollment decreases or spikes. Mike asked, they're going to House Ways and Means soon, about the House budget, and I asked him to really consider pushing a pothole fund because of the loss of enrollment, number one, and if what you just spoke about, Mr. Rodriguez, is if we start to get a spike. As you know, we don't see that money until next year, even though we have to make sure, those students come in, we educate them, we have to get the services that they need. So we are asking him for the pothole, to get that pothole fund put back. And I'll show the mayor and all of us in our discussions with our representatives, Dubar, Cassidy, and Brady, if they could really push to get that pothole fund back into the House and Senate budget.
Mayor?
Just to follow up on that, Superintendent and I do have a meeting with the state delegation next week. We have a Zoom with them, so we will be articulating that. And also, as Chris said, we'll be meeting with Troy and myself and Mike to go over the hard numbers. The ESSER, the ARPA. I went before the city council last night to just give an update on ARPA. Mr. Rodriguez will be happy because I made a commitment again. Every ward, all 7 of them, parks and playgrounds, including the East Side Pool, we're going to invest millions of dollars actually over there as well. So we are committed on the city side, and I know on the school side with Chris's leadership with Aldo as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll keep going.
Thank you.
And the Little Red Schoolhouse will look better for high school graduation, and that's a promise that Mike and I are making.
We're
Thank
working
you.
on it. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Any members with any questions or comments? Doesn't look like we have anything further. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate the.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
So item number 2 under the agenda is other business. Do we have any other business before the Finance Subcommittee? I do not see anything. Item number 3. We are going to go into executive session. So the item number 3, executive session. School committee will go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, Brockton Education Association, BEA, Brockton Education Paraprofessional Association, BEPA, Monitor Teacher Assistant, MTAs, Independent Brockton Administrative Assistants, Technical Employees Association, IBAA, and TEA, Transportation Custodian and Maintenance. So can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to go into executive session.
Just on the motion, just to clarify, we are not coming back into session, correct?
We're going to make that. No, we're not.
Thank you.
So a motion was made by Mrs. Mendez. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Sullivan. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Well, actually, we are not, the committee will not return to open session following the executive session. So can I get a roll call vote? Mrs. Sullivan? Mr. Homer?
Yes.
Mrs. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So we will not be coming back